My name is Bhavesh Patel and I'm a manager here at Cooper Parry, and the purpose of today's video is to go into some detail in how we are using Microsoft Teams to conduct audits remotely. Now, some of you may have joined us on our WOW webinar for academies, and if you haven't had a chance to watch that, I'd highly recommend you go back and watch that. But within there, I had a 10-minute segment just sort of going through the key features of Microsoft Teams, and the purpose of today's video is just to spend a little bit more time on those features and to show you how we're going to utilize it going forward. Now, some of you might be using Teams at the moment, which is great. It's a fantastic tool for collaborating with members of your own staff and also sharing information with those outside of your audit. And it is for these reasons that we're going to utilize Microsoft Teams, because we feel that it will bring a lot of benefit when it comes to the audit and the year-end process. And the key element that we'll be using it for will be to drive sort of the information request list or the audit deliverables list. And I just want to spend a bit of time today on today's video going through Microsoft Teams, its features, and also the best ways to go around utilizing the system. Now, you'll be invited to Microsoft Teams by a member of your audit team, and you'll essentially receive an email. So I'll share my screen and we can go through sort of the start to finish side of how to go about using the software. As I say, you'll be invited to Microsoft Teams. It will have the name of the actual academy which you work with, and it will also give you the name of the individual who's invited you to it. So the invite looks very much like the one you see on screen. It gives you a few details about the features, and also gives you a link there to open up Microsoft Teams. So if I click on that link, so what you'll see here is my browser. So it's come up. I already have the full Microsoft application on the desktop, and that's what this little pop-up here is prompting me to open up. Now you're able to use all functionality that you'll need for the audit through the web application. So the purpose of this demo, I'm going to do it all through a browser. So if I click cancel there, the option you've got, if you want to download it, you can click this button here. But you might have various different IT firewalls or security protocols to stop you from installing software. So you might need to contact a member of your IT team to have that installed on your machine. Now, the difference really between the app and the web browser is the fact that the app allows you for a few added features. For example, if you conduct a video call, you can see all members who have dialed into the call, just as long as they're sharing a camera, of course, rather than just seeing the active speaker. So there's one or two key features which you find more useful going forward, but as I say, the way that we've utilised it, it means that you can use it purely through the browser without having to install a dedicated application. So again, if you've already got it installed, you can click this button here, but as I say, just going to use the web app, so I'll click this button and I'll open up the demo suite which we've got set up. So this is what you'll see. You'll have the name of the academy which you work, and then within this team site you'll have what are these little tabs underneath, which are essentially called channels. So for this, the demo software, we have a general tab, and then also the information request tab, which we'll spend a bit more time on at the moment. So within each tab you'll see that there's a general area here and a general post function, and this works very much like all instant messaging that you might be used to. It's available to view by everybody who's been invited into the team. So again, that's members of the audit team, members of yourself as the client team, and any messages you can sort of just type in here. So for example, you can just type in any message and that'll be delivered for everybody to see. Now if you wanted to send an instant message and have that sent to somebody for their particular attention, what you can do is use the at function. So as soon as you hit at, they'll actually pull up a sort of mini address book for everybody who's within their team site. So if I wanted to send something specifically to Glenn, I'd click his name, and then I'd just type in a message, and then as I hit enter and send that, I won't do that. But if I hit enter and send that, Glenn will actually receive an individual itemized pop-up on his screen to say that a message has been sent, something for him to go into and respond to or interact however he needs. So I'd highly recommend that feature because it's a good way of sort of grabbing somebody's attention if they're online. Now, one of the main facets of the system is communication. So as well as instant messaging, if you were to click on a contact here within the messages, it gives you the detail of the individual and their registered contact information. You could select that to set up a new chat feature. So that was more of a private one-on-one instant messaging conversation that I'd be able to have with Glenn if there's something that I feel I needed to speak about but didn't want to involve the general group, that's a good way of going about that. You can also click the email function, so this will populate a blank email with Glenn's email address. So again, if you wanted to have a more formal conversation or you wanted to move it out of Teams and have it on your email, you're able to launch that natively throughout the app. You can also conduct video calling as well, which is a useful feature, so planning meetings, catch-up meetings, maybe even completion meetings, or even presentation to the Board of Trustees can be all done through Teams if they wish to go through a video call feature. So that will initiate a call. But if you're feeling a bit camera shy, you can do a more traditional audio call, so using the microphone and the speakers, or your headset that's plugged into your laptop, you'll be able to call the individual directly, and that will just ring on their machine, the laptop, for you to then have that conversation. So you can go in and have people added onto this as well, ad hoc, which is quite a good feature. So, for example, with some academies which I work on, when we're looking at things like the fixed assets, there might be one or two members of potentially the estates team who need to get involved. So we might not necessarily add them at the very beginning, but if they do need to be added, as an example, we can add a member of the team on an ad hoc basis, and they can then also be allocated tasks and items, which I'll go through next. So that is the communications feature. Like I said, it all can be launched through the app. The next thing I wanted to go across to is just the ability to then go ahead and request the information, how we're going to go about driving that this year. So you will have an information request tab, and again, information items can be posted here for communication. But if you click on this tab here, we've actually utilised the Microsoft Projects add-in feature for Teams. So what you're seeing here is your deliverables list. So we tried to move away from a static full list of requests that you'd have to sort of go in. With this, we decided to break it up into what's known as buckets. And then within buckets, you've got tasks, and within tasks, you've got checklists. So we feel that this is a good way of breaking up the information request lists, and it also brings a lot of features in, such as monitoring, allocation of items. So it's an easy way for you to split items out and track the progress and monitor in terms of how well that information is coming back to us. So within here, this is a sort of standard setup you'd see on most files. But please be aware what I'm showing you now isn't a one-size-fits-all. There are lots of different options which I'll come to shortly in a moment. So within the buckets, we've got a general information bucket. So this contains, if you were to click on it, you can see the checklist of items there which we're after, so things like minutes, updated budgets, TVs, information such as that. We've also got related parties, permanent information request lists. The next bucket along will be the balance sheet. So the balance sheet then is split up into things such as fixed assets, investments, debtors, cash and creditors, and it will be tailored for yourself. This is a demo environment, so what you're seeing, take that with a pinch of salt, because I've added a few bits and pieces which you might not necessarily see, just to show you how it might look going forward. The next one we have is the SOFA, so all items to do with income, expenditure and payroll. Payroll is something which I'll touch on separately when it comes to confidential information. And then we've also got the accounts return, so all information pertaining to the accounts return. Now, you'll see that I've been going in, sort of clicking in on these tasks. So within the buckets there's a task. If I were to go on to, say, for example, to general, for example, you'll see within general there's actually the list of the items which we require. Now, we're very flexible here at Bhavesh, so if you feel that there is a file which you have with all this information and you wish to provide that, you can upload that as one item and simply just check off the lists. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail. If you click on the task, if you want to see a bit more of a detailed view, you can click show on card, and then that will bring all the checklist items out into the task, so you can see at a glance without having to click in all of the items which are requested. So again, you can do that for all of them, show on card. So you'll be able to get a very detailed look. If you fancy a detailed look, you can have that, but if you want a more filtered look, you should just click on and then untick show on the card. And what that does, it keeps the checklist items on there, but it hides it within the task, so you get more of a filtered view. Not so busy to look at, and maybe not so daunting in terms of providing the information for. So within the tasks, what you might actually find, if we take fixed assets for example, you might find that there's a message waiting for you when you come in. So for example, this is a way where, for an example, what I've done is I've said here, there's a schedule which you provided last year, which we found very helpful, and do you have a updated version for the new year? And then if you scroll down, you might actually get an attachment from your audit team who've done the planning. And if you were to click on that, again, without opening up in other applications, it opens up natively within Teams, and you'll be able to see the schedule which we've prepared. So you might find attachments from us within there, but again, it's a simple case of point and click, and it will open up the schedules for you. And then if we go back to the actual task itself, as you go through, again, we're very flexible. So if you have a big folder that contains all the information, you can just upload it as one, but I would encourage you to tick off the checklist items as you go through. And that will basically allow us to know what bits have been provided. So if, for example, if we go to your debtors, you can add an attachment file. So again, you can either add items one by one, and it accepts all life, so Word, Excel, PDF are the main types of files, so you can add them all one by one. Or if you prefer, you can add items that are sort of zipped up in a zip folder. So you just click on the icon of the zipped archive, click open, and then it'll add it there as an attachment. So as I said, I'd encourage you to tick off the items, and then just leave a little comment when it's done, just to say items completed, and then if there's anything which you're not able to provide, just make a little note. And then once that's done, you just click send, and it adds it onto this little message history down here. So that'll give the audit team, when they click into this, they'll see the items that have been done, they'll see any items which are unchecked, and then hopefully the schedule of items will have down here, and then we can read the comments to see if there's any items that are not required, and we can then just delete them off. Now, within each of the tasks, they can be allocated. So these are allocated to myself, but you can allocate more than one person if you need. So if you've got a couple of team members that have been tasked with a section, you can change the allocation here and add more people, which is helpful. But if you feel that potentially there's one item that could be done by someone else, you don't necessarily want to reassign the entire task, what you can do. So we take this one for example, details of VAT inspections from HMRC. You can actually click this arrow icon here, and it'll make it its own task within the main bucket. So it pushes it out, and if you go back into the main bucket, you'll see at the very top, there you are, details for the VAT inspections. So again, it sends it up as its own task. I can say, for example, reassign it to Glenn, and just say, type in a message saying, this one's for you. And then you can assign, again with all tasks, you can assign it a progress. So again, I'd encourage you to utilise this, because it will help when it comes to monitoring of the information coming across. And I'll go through that in some detail. So I can put in progress. You can also set the priority as well, which again I'd encourage you to use, and we can also set due dates as well. And you'll see the benefit of that again is it drives sort of the information sharing and the reporting side. So if you have anything that goes overdue, you automatically get sort of a red tab and put on there along with the due date, which has since passed. So that is very helpful when it comes to monitoring the progress and all the items. So if we go to the monitoring side of things, if you've got overview of the whole team and the audit process, this charts little tab within the information request list gives you a graphical at-glance view in real time of how you guys are getting on in terms of preparing the information. So you can see items which haven't been started, items in progress, items which are late, overdue, and things that are completed. And if you scroll further down, you'll be able to see the various members of the team and how they're getting on in terms of what they've started and what they haven't started, and items that they've completed. So it's a good way if there's a block of information, it gives you a better picture in terms of how your team are progressing with the information. So if there's any issues, you're able to chase up on what the actual hold-up might potentially be. Now, that's very helpful when you're sort of monitoring your wider team. But what happens if you're a team member and you don't necessarily want to see what everybody's doing, you just want to focus on what has been assigned to you? Well, again, the benefit of Teams is that you can have that done, again, live without having to make any changes. So you click on the left-hand side here, the little chat function, and then within chat, you've got My Tasks. So this links directly live and it's up to date with the master sort of task list within your Teams information channel. And it just shows you all the items that you have been assigned to or co-assigned to, and then you can just go in, make the adjustments, add in the information, make the comments, change your progress to items that have potentially been completed, and then you'll see it will move over from your not started to items in progress to items completed. So this is a fantastic way of you just being able to focus on the bits or the areas of your own specific responsibility without the need of having to sift through the wider information of everything that has been requested across the whole the school. Now, when you're completing items, if you go onto the information request list, as you complete items, they'll appear down here at the bottom, complete. Now, if you've accidentally completed something without having provided the information, you just simply untick that item there. It will then add it back into the original place it was, and then you can go back in and make changes to that or reassign it if needs be. So that's really helpful in terms of, again, making sure that the information is where it needs to be. Now, as I said at the beginning, Microsoft Teams is very flexible, and what you see here is a one-size-fits-all solution. So take, for example, if you're a MAT, you have more than one school within your trust. The way that you are set up, where your information sits, should all be kind of discussed with your audit team at the planning stage, so they can decide how best to go around deploying this as a solution for you to provide your information. So, for example, if you did have a few schools within the trust, each school could have its own channel, and within each channel they can have their own defined checklist. However, if you've got a more centralised function, then these schools have only got satellite bits of information, or staff will be responding to these queries. Rather than have a whole new channel and a whole new list, you could, if you wanted to, add them as a new bucket. So within there we could populate the requests that need to be responded to for that particular school. So that could contain items such as income, expenditure, requests for documentation. That can all be done within its own bucket, and again assigned to different people with different priority lists, and then again they can go back to and either respond in via this bucket, or they can do it via their sort of my own task link. So that's really helpful and powerful. So what I'd encourage you to do is speak with your audit team at the planning stage, and then together decide what would be the best solution in terms of the setup for Teams and how it will best be utilised and deployed for your own staff. Now, I touched on payroll. Now, there'll be throughout the audit various different bits of information which you'd like to share with us, but not necessarily share that with the wider members of your own team. And where we see this happen more often than not is within payroll. So you'll see various different payroll items, and if you were to upload these items into this folder, it could potentially be viewed by other members of your team. Now, what you need to do is, again, at the planning meeting, discuss this in advance before you upload any information with your audit team. So they'll be able to set up a restricted, confidential folder, which only a handful of the members of who you tell us to invite to will actually have access to. So I've actually done this for this demo just to show you. So what we're looking at here is my sort of external client type login. Now if I was to click on files, you'll see that it's blank. There's no information in there that I can see. Now if I switch across to my own team, so this is my work team, my audit kind of login, my auditor login, sorry. So if I were, again, it's the same deliverable list as you saw on my browser. If I were to click on the Files tab, you'll see that there is actually a confidential payroll information folder which has been set up and only shared with my auditor login and not my client login. So I can go into that along with the person who's uploaded it. I can see that there's a payroll summary document in there, and again, it natively opens up within Teams, and you'll be able to see the schedule that has been uploaded. I'll be able to see that as the auditor, but as a member of the team, the external or the client team who has had an invite to it, they can't see it. So again, confidential information is possible to set up that folder, but we need to get a little steer from yourself of how much of that information will be needed and who it needs to be shared with. Now, the other benefit of Teams as well, when we're talking about sharing of information, is that it's got its own mobile app as well. which is quite helpful. So if there's information that you wish to share with us, but you don't really wish to be sort of stored on our SharePoint sites, you could, and I've done this recently with a client where I had to check the right to work checks done for their employees. So what they did is they had Teams set up on their mobile. We set up we had a video call, and they simply pointed the camera at the key bits of the documents that were needed, and that was it. We were able to do our checks and balances by just seeing the information on the video call without the need of having it. So again, if there is anything like that similar within your organisation that you want to go down that route, Teams is able to support it, and that will suit for our audit purposes as well. So, sorry, just checking how we're getting on. So we've gone through sort of the monitoring and the own tasks and the mobile side of things. I think it's all that's left to say really is just to, again, have a chat with your teams at the planning stage and make sure that you're happy with how it works. If there are any items that I might have missed within this video, or if there's any areas that you want me to go in a bit more detail, please do let me know and I can set up another video. But I think all that's left to say is thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I look forward to working with you in the near future. Thank you very much. Goodbye.